Introduction. It is me who needs an introduction. So I will introduce myself first. I am Asad from SMERU YouTube, and I would like to thank you for joining us in this hotel for our workshop starting tomorrow. But we'll talk more about the workshop tomorrow. Tonight we will have a prelude to the workshop, a kind of dessert for our dinner, which I think will be very different, and Hal will deliver it. Silakan Bapak.
Selamat malam. Nama saya Hal dan ini kawan saya Pak Asif. Terima kasih banyak Pak Asif. Campaign baru, barangkali campaign Pak Prabowo. Prabowo dan Mas Beliau. So, terima kasih banyak atas kesempatan bicara malam ini. Dan saya mohon maaf mengganggu karena ini malam yang sangat enak dan mungkin lebih baik ngobrol-ngobrol sama kawan daripada dengar sama saya. So, saya secara singkat saja bicara, ya. So, saya mulai dengan ini, bertanya, ya. Ada, it's multiple choice, ya. Ada 4 kemungkinan. So, siapa dulu di sini? History will be kind to us because we will write it. Pilihan yang pertama is Bapak Presiden Yudhoyono. Pilihan yang kedua adalah mantan Perdana Menteri Mahathir, Malaysia. Pilihan yang ketiga is Perdana Menteri Australia Tony Abbott. Pilihan yang keempat is mantan Perdana Menteri Singapore Lee Kuan Yew. Dan pilihan yang kelima Winston Churchill. So, siapa menulis ini? Mahathir Jokowi. Ini pilihan yang keenam. Jokowi SDA Mahathir, Lee Kuan Yew, Tony Abbott, and Winston Churchill. Yes, Winston Churchill. Bagaimana? Ada yang berpendapat lain? Siapa? No. Ada lagi? It's not Tony Abbott. No. Mahathir. Okay. Siapa mendapat Mahathir dan siapa Winston Churchill? Please. Mahathir. Itu masuk Anda? No. Okay. So Winston Churchill benar. Pak Asif, ada hadiah untuk ibu ini. Okay, so dia benar. Dan terima kasih banyak kepada untuk di saya bahwa terima kasih. Okay, so mengapa saya bicara tentang Winston Churchill? Ini saya kira ini sentimen yang penting. Sentimen yang penting. Oleh karena it matters who writes your history. It's critical to your national identity who writes your history. Yeah? So that's going to be the theme of my talk. Yeah. And the second theme of my talk is kita tahu bahwa sekarang menurut Menteri Keuangan Republik Indonesia, ekonomi Indonesia sudah masuk kelompok yang paling besar di dunia, dianggap ekonomi nomor 10 dari segi besarnya ekonomi. Ya. Artinya Indonesia sudah masuk the top 10 club, dan ini berarti bahwa Indonesia, saya kira, I'd like to propose, berarti kalau besar, artinya ada kewajiban juga yang lebih besar, kewajiban internasional yang lebih besar, that means that I think Indonesia has to take a position on important global issues seperti climate change, seperti global imbalances, seperti global inequality dan macam-macam lain. And I think to do that, it means that Indonesia has to have a vibrant and strong research community, because the ideas come from the research community, and that means having strong universities and strong think tanks like SMERU. So I think that's the theme of my argument. And then I want to just go back to the earlier picture, earlier picture, gambaran dari dulu mungkin 5 atau 10 tahun lalu. And my impression was itu gambaran yang boleh dikata kurang memuaskan untuk Indonesia, Contoh saja di majalah ini Asia Pacific Economic Literature, yang majalah dari ANU, itu ada artikel oleh Davis and Gonzalez. Mereka berpendapat bahwa the leading authors on the Indonesian economy dari Economist Database, that is dari majalah Journal of Economic Literature, 1986 to 2001, the top 10 authors dalam database itu menurut Economist semua bule luar negeri. Sebetulnya pada ini sampai tahun 2001, sebetulnya all but one with some ANU connection. They do either graduate from ANU or staff member of ANU. In the top 10, hanya nomor 9 adalah Pak Anand Nasution, dan nomor 10 actually not an economist yet, Tulus Tambunan, but somehow he got into econ. So that was a pretty gloomy picture. Sampai tahun 2001. Something else. Ini dari Scott Guggenheim, dari kawan Pak Aziz.
Siapa yang satu orang yang bukan ANU connection?
Christian siapa? Dari siapa? You know that. Siapa? Siapa? I forget. I'll let you know tomorrow. Probably. No, I'm not sure. And by the way, please, Mama, please silakan mengganggu anytime. Let's make it informal. So that's yang kedua, ini quote dari Scott Guggenheim, yang lama di Indonesia, dulu di World Bank, sekarang menjadi orang Australia di Jakarta. So he says Indonesia, this was in the update 2 tahun lalu, Indonesia performs well below other countries of comparable economic standing. Terus dia bilang, according to Social Science Citation Index, the SSCI, as reported in a paper by our friends Daniel Suryadama and Jackie and Sonny Tanwijaya, only 12% of the social science research published on Indonesia, so bukan saja economy tapi social science secara umum, over the period 56 to 2001 was undertaken by authors based in the country. So gambaran juga agak gloomy, So that's the earlier picture. Bagaimana sekarang, So saya ingin tanya, dan yang sebetulnya tahu adalah ini si ahli UNPAD, tahu banyak tentang ini, dan tahu lebih banyak dari saya, dan saya juga tahu banyak actually, I think, and others as well. So ini saya dapat dari Ben. Terima kasih banyak, Ben. I think you helped me find this data, the Scopus data. The Scopus series, apakah itu gambaran yang lebih optimis, Apakah itu gambaran yang lebih optimis? Karena menurut data yang terakhir, ada kenaikan yang cukup tajam, tentang artikel-artikel yang berasal dari Indonesia maupun juga Thailand dan Philippines. So ini, missing, ada yang hilang. Tapi saya kira yang garis hijau is Malaysia boleh, Malaysia maju. tinggi sekali. Yang merah, I think merah is because it's red shirt, must be taxi, must be Thailand. Tapi Indonesia, saya kira yang biru, ya. Kalau saya tidak salah, tapi maju juga, ya. So something's happening, which looks much more encouraging, yeah. So that's why I'm going to ask Arif Yusuf to silakan menjelaskan. Sorry, this is then it was economics, yeah, economics and related discipline. Yeah, that's right. So that that's the important thing. So this is what's it say? Economics papers published. Yeah. Then the next thing is as Patrick said, and also the reading indicators also show improving pictures. So ini hasil, ini kesimpulan Arif, right? You've written a paper on this. Well, you wrote a presentation on the read pen story, right? We're going to write it together. That's right. Yeah. But then we need to know that dari gambar ini, which looks pretty positive and jauh lebih positif daripada dulu, ya, is we need to know a bit more. Pertama, we need to know apakah publikasi itu dalam, kalau dikata refereed journals. I'm not sure whether Scopus, I'm not sure whether they're refereed or not. Like they include working papers and things like that. So
yeah,
that's
sure how,
yeah. No worries. Then yeah. That's the first question. Yang kedua, it's I think the data itu mengenai penulis-penulis yang dengan afiliasi di Indonesia. Yeah, so they're Indonesia-based authors. In fact, if you look at the list, quite a few of them are like Area and World Bank, Jakarta, and so on. So it's not just Indonesian authors. Also, we need to know are they co-authored or single authored. So that also makes a difference. Yeah. So looks gambaran yang lebih positif, tapi kita harus tahu lebih banyak sebelum mengambil kesimpulan yang lebih positif. Yeah. So it's a nice descripsi or disertasi or article dengan Arif Yusuf to be written. Yeah. Okay, so that's the start. Huh? Second part is, I guess we all know this man, we all love him very much, Yang Terhormat, our mentor here. And I want to just report a little bit ini bagian kedua presentasi ini berdasarkan hasil penelitian yang saya had the good fortune of writing two papers with Patek Yanwi University. Yang pertama was in BIS, August 2012. We called Indonesian Universities in Transition, Catching Up and Opening Up. And yang kedua dalam buku Indonesia Update tahun lalu yang diedit oleh Daniel Suryadama. Yeah, so it's a little bit of kesimpulan dari kedua paper ini, just briefly. Yeah. So proposition satu, yeah. Tentu saja history matters, yeah. We know for education indicators that history really matters. So contoh saja dari dataset Baroli, kalau itu benar, it's historical data, tapi dari Baroli pada tahun 1960, for Indonesia, they recorded 1.6 years of schooling. 68% of the population yang umurnya 15 tahun ke atas had no or incomplete primary education. So dibandingkan misalnya Philippines 4,2 tahun, yaitu hampir 3 kali lebih banyak dari Indonesia, and the percentage was 25%, so jauh di bawah. Thailand juga lebih maju. So that's the first proposition, history matters. You can't change things quickly. And then, so Indonesia is building on relatively weak education indicators, or they counterfactual factors ago. So we see that in the current indicators. These are the ones from TIMS, or something most of us, we know the story comparatively. In maths and in English, and young mind to PISA, kira-kira, kesimpulan kira-kira. So history matters. Yeah? Any proposition proposition kedua dari tayangan saya jelas itu bahwa laju pertumbuhan tinggi sekali. Menurut perhitungan kami, jumlah mahasiswa tingkat S3 di Indonesia pada tahun merdeka hanya 2.000, so hampir tidak ada ya. So dari 2.000 sampai 5 juta in 2 generations is luar biasa amazing. Yeah? And I guess there's a good argument for concentrating scarce resources pada awal on sektor dasar, sektor pendidikan dasar dan menengah daripada di sektor tertiary. Yeah? So that's the second proposition. Proposition yang ketiga adalah pengeluaran dan dari sekarang sampai ke habis itu tentang sektor universitas saja, bukan pendidikan saja. Tapi proposition yang ketiga adalah pengeluaran di Indonesia untuk sektor pendidikan tinggi sebetulnya tidak begitu besar, ya, itu 1,3% GDP, dan dari jumlah yang tidak begitu besar, mayoritas dari swasta. So, kita 1/4 dari pemerintahan dan 3/4 dari sektor swasta. Ya. So ini sebagai contoh ya, bahwa Indonesia is not spending a lot on education. It's not a big spender on education. It's not a small spender, but it's not a big spender. Tetapi it has a big backlog dibandingkan negara. So and its government sector, that's the yang lebih hitam, is sektor pemerintahan agak kecil ya, 0,3%. Sebetulnya kalau saya tidak salah, jumlah subsidi BBM sekitar 10 kali lebih tinggi daripada pengeluaran untuk sektor pendidikan tinggi. So the fuel subsidies, I guess, almost 4% of GDP, and government spending on tertiary universities is about 0,3%. Kira-kira, yeah. So this is, I guess, very priority. Mudah-mudahan Pak Prabowo di sana bisa dengar. So ini proposition ketiga. Yeah? So building on big backlog and also not spending. So not surprisingly, because of the history and the spending, Indonesia is still lagging on enrollment ratios. So this is just telling us tertiary enrollment ratios. Actually, Indonesia doesn't look that bad. Tapi masih di bawah misalnya Malaysia, Thailand, also China. Yeah? So that's what you'd expect given the backlog and given the spending. Yeah? So, okay, so just to stop on Indonesia, just to think what are the lessons from best practice, best practice in tertiary international lessons on best practice for universities. And because I come from a university which is totally dysfunctional, selalu dysfunctional, I can tell you quite a lot about what to avoid, yeah? But don't do what ANU does. So what are some of the lessons? Yeah, so kami ambil beberapa kesimpulan. Yang pertama, leading universities are internationally connected. So some of the surveys suggest as a sort of benchmark that sedikit-sedikitnya 30% mahasiswa dari luar negeri dan mungkin 20% lebih fakultas staff. Ya. Ini indikator yang kasar saja, tapi just a rough indicator. They're internationally oriented. And so there's a quote from one of the researchers which we like. It says little internal mobility of students and faculty encourages inbreeding. So universities really thrive when they're globalized, yeah, in terms of ideas and students and faculty. And we suggest that this is relevant to some of the Southeast Asian examples. Like 2 countries in Southeast Asia yang paling maju dari segi globalisasi pendidikan tinggi adalah Singapore dan Malaysia. Please correct kalau saya salah. But Malaysia's become probably the major hub for international offshore higher education in Southeast Asia. Not just its own universities, but the foreign universities, like Nottingham and Indonesia. So ini yang pertama. Yang kedua, universitas mahal sekali. Yeah? Some of the estimates for establishing a new university de novo, visa sampai 1 billion. If you want to do a really top university all of a sudden from scratch, yeah, they're very expensive. The US is actually a global leader, not by accident. It's because if you look at comparative expenditures on universities, US ranks very high, yeah? So it's a big country with a lot of expenditure. And you see that in the negara Asia Timur yang maju juga, yaitu the China, Singapore spending a lot on universities. So they don't come cheap, that's what I say. Yang ketiga is tentang governance di dalam kampus, di dalam universitas. And kami ada kesimpulan bahwa high quality university governance requires autonomy, yeah? Autonomy from the bureaucracy, autonomy from government. It requires incentives for high performance in research and teaching, and it requires a strong academic culture. Kami berpendapat tanpa tiga faktor itu, yaitu autonomy, incentives, and strong culture, it's very difficult to create a strong university. Yang keempat, faktor keempat yang saya kira ada boleh dikatakan kesimpulan dari literature international adalah you need arm's length independent review process for everything. You need arm's length independent for appointments, for promotions, for resource allocation. So there's a quote from, I think it's the US president of Brown University, US, and she said, the bedrock of university quality in the US is peer review. Obviously that's important. Actually, in ANU, we spend all our time just being reviewed, non-stop. but you need some kind of independent review, I guess. So that's just sort of thinking about, globally, what are some of the lessons here. So let's have a little bit of discussion about for Indonesia especially. So take the argument that incentives matter. Maksud saya bukan saja keuangan, tapi insentif sort of moral, inspirasi. Keuangan saja, uang saja, tidak ada lain. Actually, I think people like to go to a place which they think they're comfortable into. I guess money's important. So there was several surveys done. There's sudah banyak out of date yet, but I haven't seen anything more up to date. There was some survey work done by Professor Mei-Ling Wee, and other colleagues. And Mei-Ling concluded that pada saat itu jumlah pendapatan si dosen berasal dari off-campus daripada on-campus. So one of the first times I went to Gajah Mada University as a student in the 70s, saya dengar ada guru biasa, ada guru luar biasa, dan ada guru yang biasa di luar. Apakah ini benar atau tidak? Saya tidak tahu. So saya belum lihat hasil survei. In a way, that's kind of a worry. If the academics are spending most of their time off campus, of course you want to everybody spend time off campus like we're doing today, but you don't want to have it just secara systematic, because you want them on campus for research. So the other conclusion we had from Indonesia, I'd like your comments here, experts here, is our impression is that most of the salary structures in Indonesian universities are pretty complex. We tried to understand them. Susah dapat pengertian yang dalam tentang the salary structures, the gaji pokok and the tambahan, the tunjangan. It seems like quite a complicated system. And our impression is that it's not very much performance related, meaning it's more seniority based than performance based. And juga, we have the impression that there's strong incentive to take on tugas administrasi karena banyak tambahan. But if you want people to stay as academics, as peneliti full time and teaching full time, you don't want them just to become administrator. We've got enough administrators already, especially at ANU. So it's a nice quote. This is dari dulu, but it's by the mantan rector EPB, I guess, Professor Andi Hakim Nasution, yang sudah meninggal. So Andi Hakim Nasution, in a book actually I edited a long time ago, In the Cynthia bilang full professors get paid less than managers of hamburger joints. Apakah benar atau tidak? Sekarang saya tidak tahu. But at least he was saying, unless you change the incentives for academics, dia mengeluh bahawa semua mahasiswa dia maju lebih cepat melalui menjadi manager hamburger joint. So, but mungkin ada perubahan. Ini quote dari 20 tahun yang lalu barangkali lebih baik sekarang. Ya, I think ada program like dozen inti and what's the other scheme, dozen something. Yeah, which maybe they make. I've never seen. Saya belum lihat ada evaluasi apakah ada dampak. But Yusuf, you must know. Ada dampak. Okay, so dia menjadi orang kaya. Sebentar lagi, Pak. Yeah, so maybe mungkin ini salah sekarang. I'd like to get comments if it's out of date. Yeah. And then I also we had the impression that also the resources are still limited. Maybe mungkin makin lama makin maju. Yeah, but resources like libraries and conference sabbaticals, seminar culture. So mungkin lebih maju dari sekarang ini. Yeah. So we have the impression that promotion also is seniority based. As I said before, it's the system cum, I think it is. It seems pretty complicated, but he's going to get it soon, so you can tell us whether it's complicated or not. Huh? We also have the impression for Indonesia that there's mobilitas antara universitas tidak begitu besar, and you need to have that mobility if you want to encourage open movement and freedom and avoid sort of inbreed. So, for example, I've always been surprised you don't see many jobs being advertised in Indonesia for dosen, yeah? Like in Australia, you see them everywhere, yeah? Kecuali dengan Perdana Menteri Tony Abbott karena sektor pendidikan dipotong, yeah? But normally you see you see a lot of jobs being advertised. You don't see it very often in Indonesia. Bizarrely, yeah? And there's not much peer review, I guess. So that's salah satu kesimpulan. If you're an editor of a journal like BIS, you spend a lot of time looking for referees, yeah? Right, Ben? You spend all your time looking for referees. So the peer review system seems to be important. Okay, so what else? So this is just then kesimpulan secara singkat. What are some of the elements of the reform agenda ini untuk Pak Anies Baswedan yang akan menjadi Menteri Pendidikan? Siapa? Oh, okay. Okay. So first of all, no quick fixes, yeah? I mean, unless you've got a lot of money, like somewhere in like Kuwait or somewhere in the Timor Tengah, with a spare $1 billion, no quick fixes, yeah? So that we need long gestation periods because of, education transformation is a generational process. But I guess we need to, kesimpulan dari update dan saya, we need to plan for Indonesia pada masa depan when Indonesia becomes, a really large country in the top 7 or top 6, yeah? So we think you do need money. Money matters. Money matters, both private and public, and you need to mix the two carefully, yeah, because they play different roles, public and private. Kesimpulan juga adalah the heavy reliance on foreign researchers, probably inevitable in the medium term, but you do need a plan for graduation, I think, when you're not so heavily reliant on our school aid. And then a few general principles we suggested. So if you think of funding, the more the training is narrowly vocational, the less the case for public funding. So if you're going to use public funding, you're probably not going to use it to train accountants, yeah? Because in a way, most of the benefits from education are privately appropriated, yeah? There's not a lot of it. I mean, I'm not being sorry if anyone's accountant, I'm saying, look, I'm anti-accountant. But there's not a big externality, arguably, for something like accounting. It's a vocational course. Probably you don't need to have a lot of funding for that. Yeah? Second one is kesimpulan adalah contestability. It seems to me contestability is really important for university funding, most funding actually. It needs to be contestable, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be sort of arm's length review. So that I think this should be a guiding principle sebanyak mungkin. It doesn't mean that every year you've got to contest your budget, but it means long-term planning, 10-year, 20-year time horizon funding we think needs to be contestable. We also think that It is to be fairly major reforms in some of the state universities, because the state university is still the most important in Indonesia, even though, you know, it's only sepertiga jumlah pengeluaran dari pemerintahan. The big state universities like UI and ETB and ETB are still really dominant. They're important, sort of setting the standards. So we suggest they need greater autonomy. We think there should be mobility should be encouraged between universities. We think that excellence in research and teaching ought to be recognised through promotions, through incentives and grants. We think there needs to be a lot better resources for staff and resources to encourage their hard work. So the government does have a role, apart from funding, it has a role in setting up the sort of the public goods which make a system work effectively, and so we think that the benchmarking is important, although you want to avoid complex regulations, but to make the market work you need a clear regulatory regime, which is and so we suggest a few of the interventions. In addition to just general increase in funding, we suggest things like high quality, credible quality assurance, because somewhere there's got to be some quality assurance process. We leave it to the market initially, but eventually it needs to be an effective accreditation program. The government's probably got a big role to play in helping teachers with curriculum development. A lot of opportunities for staff upgrading. It seems to me Indonesia's not sending abroad enough researchers for graduate work overseas, and probably not getting enough students coming into Indonesia either. The number of foreign students, as we know, in Indonesia is really small. I think di Malaysia, Pak, jumlah mahasiswa asing sekitar 180 lebih dari 200,000. It's a big number, I saw once. Huh? Ini semua S1, S2, S3. I saw a figure like 180,000, but mungkin salah. But anyway, the Indonesian figure I saw somewhere is it berapa? It's kecil sekali, mungkin di bawah 10,000. And actually kebanyakan dari Malaysia dan dari Timor Leste. Take out Malaysia. Yeah, but that seems to be, you know, a comparative thing in Malaysia, for example. Yeah. Opportunities for research need to be generous research grants. I mean, if I were advising the future parliamentary, I would have, you know, big research grant schemes, you know, generous ones, which will pay us a full salary for a year, you know. They'll be with conditions, yeah, that you have to, things like that. You know? So, much greater international engagement. I think that's really Indonesia's sort of masih di bawah radar screen internationally. Maybe it's improving, as we were discussing today, but it's pretty low for a country of, you know, the fourth largest country in the world. And then final question is, obviously equity issues are going to be important. Here, if I see that we saw the data on the tertiary participation rates by socio-economic quintile, I think Pak Asik knows this much better than me, but tingkat partisipasi dari quintile yang terbawah dan bottom 40% rendah sekali, ya, di sektor pendidikan tinggi, especially top universities, yeah. So that's another issue we talked. So how to do it is the question. So in Australia we have this scheme called the HECS, Higher Education Contribution Scheme. It's like an income contingent loan, and that's Daniel Suryadharma sudah menulis artikel tentang itu, apakah mungkin di Indonesia juga. And I think in Malaysia there's some discussion of this kind of scheme, Thailand juga. So it's an effective scheme, tetapi harus ada kantor pajak yang efektif juga. Yeah? So the question mark, maybe it's jangka panjang, maybe something that can be used to ensure wider participation. Maaf, saya mengganggu malam yang sangat indah. Not ngobrol. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, thank you Pak Hal. Ada yang ingin menanyakan sesuatu untuk diskusi?
I'd like comments as much as questions.
Iya, silakan.
Just want to add a little bit, Hal, barangkali based on our discussion this morning after visit Bandung, look at UNPAD and ITB. Just wonder whether collaboration between university in creating a program would be important, because we have discussed, imagine that ITB, UNPAD and UNPAD can have one program, whatever it is in economics or in whatever field. Yeah, it will be very strong because they actually have resources in the city. Approximation between this university are relatively strong, and so. But I don't know whether that there are some effort to do that.
In some ways, Congo saja Tilburg Institute. Tilburg runs the graduate program where students come from Free University, Amsterdam, and it works like that. You're a product of this industry.
Oh, hanya satu komen Budi. Well, jadi kalau apa namanya, kebetulan saya lahir di Bandung ya, lahir di Bandung gitu. Terus SD di Bandung, SMP di Bandung, SMA di Bandung, S1 di Bandung ya. Oh iya betul. Terus jadi dosen di Bandung gitu. Orang Indonesia seperti itu. Nah, tapi yang what I mean is we have some strange culture that that make the mobility of academics in Indonesia is rather limited, or perhaps almost immobile, and there's too much sentiment of being UNPAD, UGM, ITB, IPB, UNPAD. There is some sentiment like that which I don't understand where it come from, but it also happened to me once. Not anymore. So, for example, in my campus, in my department, there is no single out of the 50 lecturers that's coming from other university. And I believe in others too. And I think that also, relevant to the idea of inventing some sort of multi-university center. But I think it's possible. For example, we had a constant collaboration, for example, with UI, especially Pak Juni Hartono. Pak Juni Hartono is not here, but Pak Juni Hartono worked on the weekdays in UI, but on the weekends in Bandung, for example, something like that. So yeah, we do have. So it basically on person to person basis, there is a potential to do that. And well, but still, there are a lot of challenges. We have to break the cultural barrier. I think we should as soon as possible. Otherwise,
Which one do you believe?
I have my own data, but I think that I'm not so sure that's such a rapid pace. I have to look at it again, but my data set, my own data set is not that much. But there is some interesting story about especially because you mentioned the collaboration, right? In Indonesia, I think majority, more than 50%, I think 60%, majority of the paper written is internationalized. So it means that it's some people say it's a good thing. I said no, it's a bad thing. Why? Because most probably those papers are written as a PhD. So when you do a PhD in Europe, like Pak Maman, where's Pak Maman? Pak Maman there, my colleague from UNPAD. So it's very tough. He has to have 4 papers. 3 of them at least submitted. 2 of them at least has to be accepted. Not one has to be submitted, and the one ready to see submit. So and we start to have yes, and we start to have more and more people going to Europe, and then in Europe they have this this requirement, and also in other places too. So I suspect that many of the papers that is written with Indonesian affiliation is coming from those PhD publication as a requirement. I have I'm quite certain. So let's see again. Until in the day after, Budi also asked me to present some recent statistics. So I will try also to discuss again, because it's quite interesting to discuss. Yeah. Especially we have Malaysian colleague.
Tentang apa ya yang harus saya bicarakan? Tentang tren itu, Scopus Index Publication. Ini sebetulnya topik yang karenanya saya didatangkan ya, Pak Wadi ya, hari kedua ya. Saya lihat khusus paper economics ya, saya kurang pasti kalau pendetalan begitu. Tapi kalau overall sangat jelas Malaysia itu jauh mengatasi banyak negara lain termasuk Singapura ya, dari segi trennya, bukan numbernya, dari segi growth-nya, terutama sejak 2010 itu trajektorinya begitu steep. Bilangannya masih sedikit ya, bilangannya Malaysia rank 40 ya di dunia dari segi numbernya, not bad. Indonesia 60 saya pikir ya, 60. Tapi segi growth-nya one of the top is Malaysia. Banyak terkait dengan insentif lah, seperti Profesor Hal bilang tadi ya. Sangat terkait dengan insentif. Semuanya harus dilingkan dengan publication ini. Bukan sekadar publication, tapi minimalnya Scopus ya. Sekarang Scopus juga tidak dilihat, tapi ISI Index itu pun masih tidak dilihat ya secara serius, karena within ISI Index articles ada Q2 gitu. Jadi sudah ke situ kita. Tapi insentifnya juga di-internalize. Sepertinya kalau mau promotion ya itu menjadi asas yang terpenting ya, publication in Q1, Q2 journals, not just ISI Index, ESE ya kalau di sini ya. Baik, termasuk juga mobility program itu. Kita acknowledge bahwa mobility academicians dan juga student sangat penting. Karena itu hampir setiap universitas di Malaysia ada deputy rector ya, wakil rektor yang khusus on community industry relationship, university industry relationship, termasuk student mobility program. Dan ini menjadi bagian yang penting juga untuk promotion, untuk evaluasi, annual evaluation. Ini satu komponen yang penting. Makanya kita cukup aktif mobility program. Ada usaha sama dengan Korea, dengan Jerman ya, dengan berbagai universitas di Eropa, juga di Indonesia. We are quite prominent and we have the resources in terms of money especially. Cuma akhir-akhir ini ada sedikit perubahan sepertinya, karena kita menyadari untuk apa akhirnya publication yang begitu berkualitas, mobility program, the effect is adalah efek yang jelas ya. Dampaknya tidak immediate, apalagi dampak kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi ya, dampak pada perkembangan ekonomi itu sepertinya tidak kelihatan ya. Tak ada korelasi di antara ISI Index Publication dengan say the wealth of the economy, the wealth of the country kan. Jadi sepertinya ada omongan ya, ada talks ya, ada usulan bahwa research must be linked with how it contributes to the development of the country. Ini menjadi satu topik yang hangat dibicarakan. So, saya percaya mungkin ada kebijakan baru nanti yang akan to build indicators to measure how your work contributes to the country, not just in terms of self-actuation, dari segi Q1 articles and recognition among peers. That's important, but there are other things which could be more important in the context of developing countries like Malaysia. How your knowledge, how your expertise contributed to policies, for example. To what extent you have been acknowledged or known by the industry or by policymakers, those elements are not being debated. So, begitulah ya perubahan yang ada, perkembangan yang ada di Malaysia. I will share you more about this Thursday, is it? Or Thursday, yeah. Thank you.
Just based on past experience, Pak Hal. Jadi in Indonesia, actually, I think many of the problems that you raise are rooted in the policy also, especially the Ministry of Education policy, in particular, Directorate Higher Education, DIKTI. Universities and DIKTI likes to take pride of, have you heard about Tridharma perguruan tinggi? So these three pillars of universities, that's education, research, and community service. The problem, I think, is they try to impose these three pillars on individual level. So individual faculty member has to have these three components almost evenly distributed. So one has to have 30% of teaching, 30% of research, 30%, and the remaining 1/3 community service. So despite the fact, for example, University of Indonesia always says that it wants to become a full-fledged research university, actually they cannot. Why? Because each individual member of the faculty has to have all these three components. So I always think that Tridharma, or three pillars, has to be imposed on aggregate level, the university level. So some members, some faculty members who like to do research can do their research without having obligation to do lots and lots of teaching. Well, other faculty members who like to do teaching, fine, they can do teaching. So the universities like University of Indonesia, if they want to boost research, for example, okay, they have dosen inti penelitian or core lecturers to do research. They can focus on research without obligation to do lots of teaching, and at the end of the day, they can boost the publication, in peer-reviewed and high-quality journals, and while others who cannot really do research can focus on education. This is I think the problem. So, University of Indonesia has very good dosen inti. Other universities also have very good dosen inti to answer the problem of incentive matter, for example, but it still is not in line with the national policy. So you cannot become professor even though you publish in AER, GP, 10 publication, but you don't teach a lot. So that's the problem.
If I may, can I
ask question to Pak Handri and Pak Julius. Pak Handri come from South Kalimantan, and Pak Julius from Papua, which is relatively rich region, yeah, because of the mining boom and so on. And so there must be, the university must receive also support from the local government, some funding. Apa kesulitannya buat university yang menerima cukup banyak funding untuk meng-hire top Indonesian untuk jadi faculty member di sana? Kira-kira bagaimana? Karena salah satu kan yang Pak Hal bilang kan adalah mobility penting di perusahaan. Kira-kira saya waktu datang ke Cendrawasih juga hampir tidak ada ya, padahal kelihatannya Cendrawasih sekarang punya resources untuk hire yang terbaik pada dasarnya, lulusan terbaik yang ada di Indonesia.
Baik, thank you Pak Budi. I think my major problem for Cendrawasih University, because we are in the eastern of Indonesia, and I think in Suharto era is quite better than now. We have collaboration with University of Papua New Guinea. Well, I mean the collaboration. The collaboration.
So Prabowo.
Yeah. It's not Prabowo, I'm sorry. Yes, actually, in 1980s and 1990, we have collaboration in Pacific with Papua New Guinea and some university in South Pacific. The government also have some small amount of money, and we have problem because if we invite, for example, expertise from Australia or US, this is quite expensive. And then I also as the staff for international affairs in Cendrawasih University. And I found that if we make some memorandum of understanding, we maybe have sharing costs for do collaboration. We have the big miners company in Indonesia, Freeport, but unfortunately, we have small collaboration with Freeport because of the human resources, Pak Budi, and then. Freeport work with University of Indonesia, and in University of Indonesia they also established new Papua Center with Pak Bambang Sergi and collaborate with Cendrawasih University. But again, this is, I don't know, something hard for me. Because perhaps our human resources in Papua, or I mean in Cendrawasih University, still is underqualified. What I mean is because of the current issue, it's very few staff from Cendrawasih University is going study outside, except the local government have small amount of money and make collaboration with outside, and they send some student to Australia. Yes, this is our challenges to Cendrawasih universities. And then as Pak Budi said that, yes, we are rich about natural resources, we are rich about just natural resources, but again I think it's very limited. Last time Pak Budi informed me that the sector is good news that we can access to library. Pak Budi remember? Yeah, bulletin. This is quite good, but unfortunately we don't have any internet. What I mean is, our university don't have internet provider. 10 years ago we have supported from USA, but it's no longer. because I don't know, the internet connection has problem in Papua. So this is our traditional. Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih. I'm from Lambang University. I live in the rich province because we have oil and also we have forest. Right now we have coal mining and oil palm. But on the other hand, I think that's because the human resources and the quality is very limited. That's why our university also reflect all of the province, because most of the staff graduated from the university as in breeding, and also for the masters and doctors of most of them are from domestic universities. Maybe only 5 or 10% of the staff graduated from foreign universities. For example, in my faculty is about 5 or 10 people out of 100. So you can imagine. So most of foreign graduates are the common enemy of the domestic staff. That's the problem. Because maybe they think they are arrogant, something like that. I don't know. Just maybe jealous because of that. Most of the foreign graduates cannot get some power to reform the faculty. That's why we cannot influence how to make a better running the university, something like that. That's maybe one of the limitation. Another thing is that also most of the like a company, maybe there's limitation of the contribution to the university. Only the local government, like provincial government, give some amount of money to improve the education in our universities, but very small, about 200 million a year. The funding is also the limitation. About the staff, that's why we cannot, as Pak Budi asked, please hire the best staff, maybe 1 or 2, or give some sabbatical in Ulam, for example, but we cannot pay for them. That's our limitation. So we cannot hire dosen luar biasa. But on the other hand, most of the staff is become a dosen biasa di luar. That's most of the us. That's like me. Frankly, I used to be biasa di luar, not because most of the forest graduate are doing outside of the university, because that's a common enemy in the universities. That's we cannot change. To accelerate the development in the university. That's the problem. In other faculty as well, that's the average about 5 or 10% of the staff are graduated from the college university. That's only some of them can improve their faculty. That's, I mean, the common problem in my university, how to accelerate. That's why when I go to other seminars, that usually I use my network how to get there, something like this. And also, I think that's a good point that you said that right now Dikti has some fund to send international seminar for Indonesian staff. So, but only small of the staff can use this from the outside of big universities. I can use about 3 times about this one, the funding from the Dikti. So this is, I mean, for the university outside of Java, I usually use this kind of funding. What else I have to say? I think that's our experience in my universities. Because I also not graduate from that university. I graduate from Gajah Mada University, so that maybe this is outside from Unlam, so that's the common enemy. That's like that. As Pak Arif said that there is a sentiment from outside of the other university. That's all.
I would like to ask for opinion of people who know the university life in Indonesia. Once I received a delegation from Monash University in Indonesia, they said they were exploring the possibility to establish a campus in Indonesia, like in Malaysia. They said that the new higher education law actually allows foreign universities to be established in Indonesia, but they were still hesitant to invest in Indonesia because they were afraid somebody will contest the law to the constitutional court and the law become rejected and the investment will be wasted. So in contrast with Malaysia, which openly welcome foreign universities, I think in Indonesia there is still a reluctance or nationalistic view in the narrow sense about welcoming foreign universities to Indonesia. The question is why? Because I'm not from a university, so I don't really understand the reasons behind it. But maybe some of our friends here can.
But the last time I heard is good news, right? I mean, the Constitutional Court overruled, so it means that foreign university can start having their branch in Indonesia. Yeah, that's the recent news I have, but I'm not sure perhaps someone can correct me. But I share your concerns about the uncertainty of the law here. I'm sure it's legal. But if you have my view, I think the sentiment. But the thing that I can share is perhaps the sentiment from my colleague, my colleague. I think most of friends that I know, things like this. I mean, in Indonesia. So the situation is, just share with you, especially in the Department of Economics. Yeah? In Unpad, the Department of Economics used to be highly competitive. So among the 5,000 or 6,000 applicants, we accept 100. That was when I was, that's in 1990s. Yeah, when I had so 6,000 then 100. Now in the Department of Economics, it's lucky if we get 2,000 apply. But we are accepting twice. Used to be 200. So the quality of our students and our graduate declined quite a lot. I used the same exam as I was 10 years ago, and now I have to change my exam. So no. so the thing that I wonder is, because I discuss this with other universities, I discuss this with other departments. Actually, the phenomenon among state university are the same. So if in UGM, in the management and accounting, for example, in other universities, so there are less and less people get into the state university. So I was wondering where are they going? So perhaps some people say, oh, they have new universities, international, President universities, Bakri University. So perhaps they going there. Now, in relation to that, so in that case then, if there will be coming more universities, I mean Monash or NU Coret, in Jakarta. So I think we are ready. So because we are already having that we are already having that competitions we already. So we are welcome. So and also it's good for the country. It's good for the country because there are many new middle class with higher affordable. They can afford now more and more can afford to have the quality of university like the university. So perhaps that's the thing that I can say.
I want to add something. As we can, to get some more exposure for the staff. Our university is very conventional methods, because when I get some invitation to become a visiting lecturer in University of Malaya, they don't allow me to do that. Yeah, but I just go there for one semester. That's all. That's it's good for me and for university as well, because we get an exposure. But when I ask the dean and the rector, they don't allow me. So that's ridiculous. Because there's a benefit for the university as well.
What they said about the reason?
The reason, you can, we have some limitation of the staff. So if you go there, we don't have any replacement, something like that, just for one semester or one year. That's all. I don't know. This is not the really reasons, I think. Yeah, that's all. Okay.
Ada lagi? I'd like to hear some more comments. Ya, silakan. Questions, we don't need questions now. Sudah malam, but comments would be good.
Yes, I think this figure is quite good, but can be split into, for example, people graduate from Australia, or people graduate from outside of Australia, to see how many people, because I think it's quite interesting. And if the figure we can split become, for example, like me from Australia, so we can see that, okay, students from Australia or finished study from Australia, they are productive to write a journal or a book or something like this one. Is this possible, or?
split into author and co-author?
I think I can guess.
You can guess, yeah. Saya tidak periksa sejarah dalam ya tentang database. Mungkin saya kira tak lebih banyak. I don't think you can.
You know, in respect, this is
rather than seriously.
Yeah.
But if you know REPEC database, there's something called genealogy. Yeah, genealogy. Genealogy means you can trace that. I'm actually Pak Budi's Pak Budi's student, and Pak Budi's student has a supervisor, and they can trace that. It's amazing, you know. Yeah, it's called genealogy.
He's got a keluarga besar. Connection.
Pak Hal, if we go back to Pak Jamal's questions about the question that's being raised in Malaysia now, that research has to show impact on economic growth and everything. I wonder if that has been an issue also in Australia, because I've seen that also raised in other countries like in the UK, for example. Now every research proposal has to show its usefulness for the country or something like that. Is that something really matters, or we should just ignore that kind of questions?
So I guess I'm an academic fundamentalist. Yeah, I just want the money for good research to be, topiknya silakan apa saja. But so it seems to me the first thing is you want to have really good academic standards sebagai dasar. Yeah, kalau tanpa dasar itu doesn't matter what kind of scheme you have later if you haven't built on strong foundations. Yeah. And then the question is, so we're talking about research money, I guess, and not teaching money, yeah? So I guess most countries have a system, I'm not sure what the system in Malaysia is called, but in Australia it's called ARC, Australian Research Council, yeah? And so it's a bit like the National Science Foundation in the US and whatever the Malaysians, I don't know the name of here, but, and so they normally have priority areas. And sometimes it's by topic. It might be environment, or it won't be environment under the current Prime Minister, but dulu it was environment, or it might be connection to Asia or something like that. And then sometimes they have an additional program, which is the linkages program. So that's the linkages where you've got to have a partner from outside the universities, like the business sector, for example. I guess that's addressing your concern, but. So there have been some schemes like that. I'm not sure really whether they've been all that successful actually, because business and academics don't always sort of go that well together. Sometimes they do. Then there's a thing called the Cooperative Research Centre, CRCs, which are quite big in Australia. And I think they work probably better where they're deliberately encouraging groups of researchers across campuses, and sometimes also non-academics to be involved. Yeah. Seems to me though you've got to be careful because it's a trade-off, isn't there? You want to encourage just excellence. I mean, the guy who won the Hadiah Nobel dari ANU, was it 3 tahun lalu, yeah? Brian Schmidt, the ANU faculty got the Nobel Prize in Physics. And so people are asking him, where should the money go? And he's often saying, put the money across science, don't just try and specialise because it's so interdependent. And so if you want to have strong medical research, you need to have strong, physics and strong biology and strong mathematics sebagai dasar. So I sort of worry that if you don't want policymakers being too much involved in research allocation, first of all, because their time horizon is pretty short. And secondly, of course you want to have universities being responsive to the society and addressing societal issues, but I don't think you want to make it too narrowly defined an agenda, do you? So, and that's where your institution, ada dampak besar, yeah? So it's not formally in a university, but because you've got ada misi, yeah? And that seems to me that you can fund those kind of activities more directly. You don't necessarily want to do it through competitive research grants for universities, do you? But you say, as a society, we need to have excellence in social policy, and therefore you support it like that, don't you? So I guess, I mean, perhaps our most successful, in Australia at least, our most successful scientific institution is called CSIRO, Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation. So it just gets a block grant, although it got off actually in the last budget, but that gets a block grant. So, and that has a very explicit mission, you know, in maritime and agriculture and so on. But universities, you want to let universities be fairly free, don't you? You don't want to try and make it too narrow, because often the good researchers' results are just accidents. You know? It's people experimenting a bit, isn't it?
So unless if anybody has a urgent comment, we will stop here and we will see you tomorrow morning. We will start at we'll start at 9 tomorrow. 8:45. Okay. Terima kasih Pak Hal. Ya, kita kasih applause. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow morning in the public room next to the restaurant.